Tron Lightcycle Run is a Vekoma launch motorbike coaster themed around the Tron movies that open in 2023 at Magic Kingdom in the Walt Disney Resort in Orlando, Florida. It is an exact clone of the other Tron roller coaster at Shanghai Disneyland that originally opened in 2016 to great acclaim. This was announced to be coming to Florida the very next year, but had many delays and opened 2 years later than scheduled in 2023. It's located past Space Mountain in the Tomorrowland section of the park, right over the train tracks, and a new tunnel had to be constructed to accommodate for this. The ride is an absolute spectacle to look at, especially at night, with its lit-up canopy and stunning trains dispatching from the initial launch about every 20 seconds. I could probably just stand in this ride plaza for hours without riding it and just taking photos due to how photogenic it is. The atmosphere is helped even more by the ride's score by Daft Punk, blaring through the whole area, and it really sets the mood for the experience you're about to embark on. The queue line sadly does not have this great score playing as much, but you still have some various boards telling you about the light cycle race and the other teams competing. You will be on Team Blue, and you go through this room that used to be a little pre-show, but now the line just continues through it where a screen becomes transparent as a train launches right below you. This whole launch room has some great visuals too, with some great sound effects, and lights blinking just before the train begins its launch sequence, and then the line continues on either side of the track. You then continue through some switchbacks before reaching the locker room, having double-sided lockers very similar to those on Velocicoaster at Universal. You just scan your park ticket or magic band on the locker, put your stuff in it, and make sure to remember that number, and you can scan it from the other side after your ride. The lockers are also noticeably bigger than the Universal ones, so you can fit a lot in there. There's also a small compartment on the ride vehicle for your phone if your park ticket is on there. You then continue into the station where it's dual loading, and you split off to the left or right, very similar to Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind at Epcot. You then board your light cycle, and is a little awkward getting into. You straddle the seat and kind of rest your knees and chest on the ride vehicle, and pull down on the handlebars to allow the restraint to come over your back. It's not the most accommodating seat, so I can definitely see how some riders may be turned away if the restraint doesn't go down fully, but thankfully there is a normal sit-down row in the back of some trains to accommodate bigger riders. You then continue to the ride's main layout, which features a forceful 59-mile-per-hour launch, a height of 78 feet, and a track length of 3,169 feet. Now that we got stats out of the way, let's see how it rides. The ride begins with a surprisingly forceful launch as the ride's soundtrack also starts into a high right bank turn in the ride's canopy. You then dive back down towards the ride's plaza and turn to the left slightly as you rise into the ride's show building. You also enter the first of many mid-course brake runs that do actually slow you down a bit instead of sliding through them, which is a bit disappointing. You dive to the left through these energy gates surrounding the track and make another somewhat forceful right turn into another one before rising into another brake run with a surprising pop of air time entering it. You then dive back down and see an orange-colored train passing you to the left, but it's actually just your train with the wheels changing colors on a giant mirror before passing you through some more energy gates and twisting into another brake run. You drop down again and see some individual light cycles alongside you on a giant screen before they explode, and you enter a cool tunnel that also acts as the ride's final brake run. Overall, I think many people will say the ride's major fault is its length. It's not a very long ride at all, with it just lasting about 55 seconds from the initial launch. It's a visually stunning ride, and I love the atmosphere in the plaza and during the ride itself, but that can only prop the ride up so much. I do think it has a fantastic first launch, probably Disney's best, and has some surprising airtime moments which I didn't expect, but the ride's awkward restraints, coupled with its lackluster layout, actually make it a pretty middle-of-the-road coaster for me. I actually prefer Space Mountain right next to it, a ride that opened almost 50 years before it, as well as Everest and Guardians in the same resort. I very much enjoy taking pictures and just watching the train go by, and I'll be sure to ride it again on my next visit, but I wouldn't say it's an all-time classic Disney ride like Guardians is, for example. I would have loved to ride it more than once on my visit, but for this ride on the virtual queue system like many other Disney attractions, and it can literally cost up to $20 a person if you want to pay for the individual lightning lane. Thankfully, actually getting a virtual queue for this is not that hard at all, which is kind of surprising given that I went in July and this ride is still barely a year old. I would also recommend sitting towards the back of the train if possible, given that you can see the ride's effects better back there, and really only the launch is better in the front. You should definitely try and get on this ride and form your own opinion on it during your next visit, but be prepared for a short ride to set your expectations right. Be sure to subscribe for more content and be on the lookout for more coaster reviews and other theme park videos in the near future.